Good morning, dear students. Today we are going to complete this population ecology topic. That means the population interactions. Today we are going to deal with the parasitism, commensalism, and also mutualism. By that, this chapter will be over. Okay. For me, the remaining chapter is only the genetics. The two, I'll deal with the human genetics part onwards, so that some introduction part should be taken by the botany people. Then after that, I'll go for the human genetics. So from Monday onwards, we are going for the coaching classes, both for NEET and CET. So for Monday, we'll be dealing with the from breathing and exchange of gases. Okay, as the digestion and absorption was deleted, so there is no need to study that topic. Okay, so we'll go for that from Monday onwards, right? Today we'll go for the parasitism. Okay, so what is parasitism? So parasitism means it is an association between two species. It is an association between two species. In this association, one is parasite and one is the host. One is the host. So if you see here, the parasite is getting free meals and free lodging on the host. Okay, the parasite gets the free meals and lodging on the host, and the host gets harmed by the parasite. If you see, the parasitism has been evolved in many taxonomic groups. See the parasitism? From plants to higher vertebrates. Okay, so parasites have been evolved in many taxonomic groups, basic starting from the plants to many higher vertebrates. Then if we see that both the parasites and host, that means a parasite can survive only in a particular host. That means the parasite is host specific. That means a particular parasite can survive only in a particular host. Parasite does not survive in different types of hosts. So you remember that. For example, you take the tapeworm. Tapeworm can lead its parasitic mode of life only in man. Remember that one. Similarly, Plasmodium can live its parasitic mode of life only in man. Like that. So that is the reason why both the parasites and host have been co-evolved together. Right? You understand that? Both the parasites and host have been co-evolved together. Then we see the host develops some mechanisms to reject the parasite. That means once the parasite enters into the host body, the host is developing some mechanism to reject that parasite from its body. But at the same time, the parasite also evolved some mechanism to neutralize the host rejection and lead a successful parasitic mode of life. So what are the adaptations made by the parasite to lead a successful mode of life? Let us see them. So let us see parasitic adaptations. Okay, parasitic adaptations to lead a successful mode of parasitic life. So what are they? First one, loss of sense organs. So parasites does not have sense organs. If the parasites are having sense organs, immediately for each and every rejection reaction made by the host, the parasite will respond. If the parasite is responding like that, eventually the parasite get rejected outside from the body of host. That is the reason why they lost their sense organs, right? Second one, the development of adhesive organs like suckers and hooks. So what is the use of these suckers and hooks? The suckers and hooks are useful to cling the parasite to the host body. Suckers and hooks to cling or to hang, to attach, cling to the host body. Okay, third one, loss or reduced digestive system. Most of the endoparasites depends upon the pre-digested food. So most of the endoparasites, you take the tapeworm. Tapeworm generally does not have digestive system, but the tapeworm absorbs the nutrients to its body from the digested food of the man. So that is the reason why they don't have the digestive system, but they have well developed reproductive system. In parasites, we can see a well developed reproductive system. Why? To perpetuate its rates. That means to increase its population. And most of the endoparasites, in most of endoparasites, if you see, they have complex life cycle. Complex life cycle with 2 or more intermediate hosts. To reach the primary host. And some parasites require vectors to reach the primary host. For example, you take the liver fluke of man. Okay, so very important example, we take the liver fluke. Liver fluke is the parasite in man. It is having 2 intermediate hosts. One is the snail and second one is the fish. Okay, the snail and fish are the intermediate host. Then similarly, if you take the female Anopheles mosquito, the female Anopheles mosquito acts as a vector for the Plasmodium. That means the Plasmodium is having a vector. What is that vector? That is the female Anopheles mosquito. This female Anopheles mosquito transmits the parasite from one host to another host. So these are about the parasitic adaptations to survive in the host body. And in turn, what the parasite is doing to the host. Let us see those points also. What are the effects of parasite on the host? Most of the parasites harm the host. Okay, reduces its growth. Okay, reduces its reproduction and reduces its population density. Right? Most of the parasites harm the host by reducing their growth, reproduction and population density. And one more important point is that they make the host weak. The parasite is making the host weak and vulnerable to predators. So if the parasite is becoming weak, the host is becoming weak, then what happens? The host cannot escape from the predators. When the predators come, the host should have energy to escape from that predator. But due to presence of that parasite, the host is becoming weak, and if the predator is attacking it, it is unable to escape from that predator. Now let us go for the types of parasites. Right? So generally we'll get questions here only. They won't ask what are these. So most of the questions comes from types of parasites. So how many types of parasites are there means one is a ectoparasite. So what is ectoparasite? Here I will give you the examples. Ectoparasite means the parasites gets their nourishment from the surface of the body of the host. That means the parasites are living on the host body surface. If they are living on the host body surface for their food and shelter, we call them as ectoparasite. So let us see the example of ectoparasites. What are the ectoparasites means? Lice on the head of man, head lice, and ticks on dogs. Ticks on dogs. So this is the best example for the ectoparasite, and we'll go for the next one. One more important is plant example. Plant example. So Cuscuta on hedge plant. So this is also very important. Cuscuta is a parasite and a hedge plant. So Cuscuta has lost its chlorophyll and leaves. In Cuscuta we cannot see the presence of leaves and also chlorophyll. So it directly depends upon this hedge plant or hedge tree for its nourishment. Okay, this is one of the important example in the plants. Okay, next one, endoparasites. So endoparasite means what? The parasite which lives inside the body of host. If the parasite is surviving inside the body of host, we call that one as endoparasite. You know that tapeworm lives in our small intestine. Okay, Entamoeba histolytica, it is an endoparasite. And we can see this one, Plasmodium, it is also an endoparasite. Where the endoparasites lives? Endoparasite lives inside the body of host in RBC. They can see in the RBC, they can live in the liver. Some parasites lives in the kidney, and also some parasites lives in the intestine. So what are the best examples for the endoparasites? Let us see some of the examples for the endoparasites. We can see Plasmodium is one of the example. Is an endoparasite, lives in the RBC of man and liver of man. Ascaris, that is the roundworm. Taenia solium. All these are examples of the endoparasites. So these parasites are living inside the body of the host. One more is there, that is the brood parasitism. Let us go for that one also. Yeah, next one is brood parasitism. So brood parasitism means certain types of birds are there. Okay, these birds, they lay their eggs in the nest of another bird. So the nest of another bird means the nest of the host bird. Okay, so why these birds are laying their eggs in the nest of another bird means for the incubation. Okay, for the incubation. Then the host bird can recognize its eggs, their eggs means no, because the eggs of the parasitic birds are similar in color and similar in size to the host bird. So the host bird cannot recognize the foreign eggs. So it broods or it incubates the foreign eggs along its own eggs. along its own eggs. Okay, this is called as brood parasitism. Best example for the brood parasitism is quail laying its eggs in the nest of crow. Okay, the nest of crow. So the quail lays its eggs in the nest of crow. The crow cannot recognize the quail eggs because the size of the eggs of the quail and its color are similar to the eggs of the crow. So the crow will incubate those eggs. Okay, and this type of parasitism is called as brood parasitism. So this completes the brood parasitism. If you go for the endoparasites life cycle is very complex. Right? Why their life cycle is very complex means they have developed special mechanisms to survive in the host body, and also they are having high reproductive potential. You remember those two statements, right? This completes about the parasitism. Next we go for the mutualism. Yeah, we'll first start commensalism. After that we'll go for the mutualism. So first one is commensalism. So commensalism is one. So you can represent like this. So in commensalism, what is happening? It is an association between two species. One is getting benefit and other is getting neither benefit nor harm. So it is an association between two species. One species is benefited, other species is neither benefited nor harmed. Okay, one species is getting benefit and the second species is getting neither benefit nor harm. The species which is getting benefited is called as commensal, and the species which is neither benefited nor harmed is called as host. Let us see some best examples for that. First one, the first one is egret bird and cattle. So you have seen in the fields, generally the cattle grazing on the grass means what the cattle will do? While it is feeding on the grass, generally it tilts the heads like this, right? When it tilts the head, what happens? The flies which are present in between the grasses, the flies will come. And this egret bird feeds on the cattle. Okay, generally in the fields we can see the cattle and the egret birds together. Okay, so the egret bird is getting benefited, cattle is getting neither benefit nor harmed. Similarly, second example, clownfish and sea anemone. Clownfish and sea anemone. So if you see the clownfish and sea anemone, the clownfish lives in between the tentacles of sea anemone. Okay, in between the tentacles of sea anemone. And this clownfish prevents the predators due to presence of stinging cells in the tentacles of sea anemone. So the stinging cells which are present in the sea anemone prevent the predators to reach it. So that in that way the clownfish is getting benefited. Okay. Now the sea anemone is getting any benefit means no. The sea anemone is not getting any benefit, and also it is not getting any harm from the clownfish. So this type of association is called as commensalism. Now let us go for the mutualism. Yeah, because the next one is mutualism. Right? So mutualism is an association in which both the organisms are getting benefited. So it is a type of interaction where two different species are living together in which both the species are getting benefited. We call that one as symbiotic association, or we call that one as mutualism. So most of the mutualistic associations are seen in between plants and animals. Let us see in plants and animals, right? So plants require what? Plants require animals for pollination and dispersal of seeds. Okay, plants are requiring animals for the pollination and also for the dispersal of its seeds. And in turn, what the animals are getting? And in turn, the animals get nectar for the pollination. Right? The animals are getting nectar from the plants for pollinating, and also plants are giving its juicy fruits for the animals which are dispersing their seeds. So by this we can understand that both the plants and its pollinators have been co-evolved together. Okay, you understand that? Both the plants and animals have been co-evolved together. For example, you see this one, lichens. So lichens show symbiotic association with the cyanobacteria. Right? So lichens show a symbiotic association with cyanobacteria. That means the association between the fungus and algae. Both are getting the benefited. Similarly, the mycorrhiza leads a mutualistic association on the roots of higher plants. On the roots of higher plants. One more example we can see, the fig tree and wasp. Generally, the wasp lays eggs in the fruits of the fig tree. In the fruits of the fig tree. That means, remember here, a specific tree can allow a specific wasp only. Remember that. The wasp and fig tree relations are symbiotic, and a specific wasp lays its eggs in a specific fig tree. Okay. So while searching the flowers of different, while searching the flowers, the wasp is pollinating. The wasp is pollinating the fig tree, and in the same time, the fig tree is providing some of its seeds for the growing larva. So I told you that the wasp lays its eggs in the fruits of the fig tree. To lay the eggs, the wasp is searching the fig tree. While searching the fig tree and its flowers, the wasp is pollinating the flowers of the fig tree. And in turn, the fig tree is providing the seeds of its fruit for the developing larva. So in this way, both the tree and the wasp are getting benefited. So that is one of the best example in between the fig tree and wasp is one of the important example. And the second one, then orchid, a Mediterranean orchid and bumblebee. And bumblebee. So the Mediterranean orchid, which is called as Ophrys. So this Mediterranean orchid Ophrys, one of the petal of its flower resembles the female bumblebee. So what the male bumblebee thinks? The male bumblebee sees the petal and it thinks that it is the female bee and pseudocopulates with that petal. When it pseudocopulates with that petal, all the pollen is attached to the body of this bumblebee. Again, this bumblebee pseudocopulates with another petal of the Ophrys so that the pollination is taking place. So this is examples of the mutualism. So this chapter is completed. Now we have to go for the genetics to complete the second year topics. Anyhow, from Monday onwards, we are going to deal with the coaching classes. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.